Congressman Brad Schneider, good to have you today on the Capital TV show.
Good to be with you, Maria.
I just want to ask you like a simple question. What are your priorities right now as a congressman?
Well, thank you. Obviously, first priority is making sure that we continue the record growth in our economy while also at the same time dealing with our inflation, making sure we're lifting up the lives of not just my constituents, but everyone in America. But we're also at a historic moment in the world. So, ending the war in Ukraine, giving the Ukrainian people the resources they need to defend themselves, the humanitarian assistance to feed themselves, and making sure that Russia gets out of Ukraine and is dealt a strategic defeat is critically important. That's immediate, and then you look long term. And one of the things I look forward to talking about is peace beyond Ukraine and Russia. Peace in the Middle East has been something has long been important to me. Last month, we passed the Israel Relations Normalization Act, support of the Abraham Accords. And one of the things I hope to do is help lift up that region, work together, United States and the countries in the region, to bring more partnership and opportunity.
We're going to talk about this in details. Let me ask you about the inflation and the increasing of oil prices. Do you think that Biden should address the countries, the allies in the Middle East, like Saudi Arabia, the producer of oil, like UAE? And how do you assess the Prime Minister of UK visit to the region?
Yes, well, sure. Look, the United States is still the largest producer of oil in the world. Inflation is a real concern in general. That's exacerbated by the war in Ukraine. I will tell you that the price per barrel of oil is down now below what it was at the beginning of the invasion. So, it's a very volatile market. But we do have to work together and work with our allies to ensure supply, not just of energy, but part of what's driving inflation is rising food costs. Concern with Ukraine and Russia providing much food to much of the world. And so it's not something the U.S. or our president can solve alone. We have to work with our allies. And I suspect you'll see prime ministers and finance ministers and foreign ministers traveling the world and trying to build those coalitions.
A little over a year after Abraham Accords was signed, you had a role in that. You mentioned in the first answer. Can you tell us more about how this peace agreement is beneficial to the region, to the Middle East?
Sure, and it's been about a year and a half, a little more, since the accords were announced and signed in September of 2020 on the White House lawn. I was pleased to be there. I saw these as really an amazing breakthrough to bring Arab countries and Israel together, normalizing relations, looking for opportunities, people-to-people exchanges. The travel between the countries has taken off. Economic exchanges, you're seeing businesses working together, educational and technological. There's collaboration. It's good for Israel, for UAE, for Bahrain, Morocco, Sudan. I think it's good for the whole region. And I think the United States deserves credit for helping facilitate these agreements and can do quite a bit to both deepen the existing agreements and help expand the countries that are participating.
If the Biden administration will address or submit a deal to Congress over the negotiations successfully with Iran over its nuclear activities, would you be opposing it or in agreement with it?
So I have real concerns. The principle has always been the same. Iran must never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. The best way, in fact, the only way to peacefully end Iran's nuclear aspirations is at the negotiation table and working with our allies, in particular the European, the E3, UK, France, and Germany. The negotiations are ongoing. I've raised concerns. I want to make sure that what we do not only pushes Iran back from the precipice of being a breakout nuclear power, but closes their pathways. And so I am very concerned about the progress Iran has made over the last several years. They are very close to having the ability to make a nuclear weapon. We have to do whatever we can to stop that.
Congressman, you supported or sponsored a bill titled Suspending Energy Imports from Russia Act. Do you think that sanctions on Russia now it's have impact, or it's only gonna take time and it's not realistic?
Yeah, Maria, that's a great question. Look, this is Putin's war. Putin and Russian forces invaded Ukraine unprovoked. It's unprovoked, it's unwarranted, it's illegal. Their behaviors and actions in Ukraine are demonstrably war crimes, and they need to be held to account. At the same time, we want to avoid direct confrontation between Russia and NATO and U.S. forces. That's why we're providing Ukraine with what they need to defend themselves. But we also have to put pressure on Russia and Putin and the people around him. That's where sanctions come in. Those sanctions are severe, maybe the severest in history. They will continue to tighten. We're debating right now on the floor of the House legislation that I support to end Russia's trade status with the United States. We will do whatever it takes to get Russia out of Ukraine and ensure that Russia suffers a strategic defeat.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that China supporting Russia in its economic challenges and problems mounting as a result of its war against Ukraine, will you support a legislation of that kind?
Well, we haven't seen China take that step. I know Russia asked for it. Essentially, Russia wants to become a client state of China. I know there were also conversations with Jake Sullivan and his counterpart over the weekend, 7 hours of conversations is my understanding, making clear the United States position that we would respond with great seriousness and gravity if China were to support Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Would you think that the Biden administration relations with the Arab world, especially the GCC countries, Saudi Arabia and UAE, has changed forever? There is a new alliance is coming on the surface, and how do you assess the opening between these countries and China?
So the world's constantly changing. So yes, the relations have changed. The goal of foreign policy of every country, but certainly as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee here in Congress, our goal is to direct that change in a positive way, positive for the United States, positive for the world. I think for Saudi Arabia, UAE, all the GCC countries, they should be confident that the United States is not abandoning the region, that we see that the Middle East is very important to us. Our role there is important, engagement is important, but also that the United States is a partner, a potential partner in many opportunities. I think that the world's changing. You're seeing with the Abraham Accords, UAE, Bahrain, developing close relations with Israel. I was in Israel last month and had a dinner with the ambassadors from UAE, Bahrain, and Morocco. Perfectly normal dinner. That was unthinkable not too long ago. And so as you see relations change, the goal is to try to foster the good developments and thwart negative developments. China is a player on the world stage. It's normal to expect that China will have relations with those countries. But I believe that those countries can count on the relationship with the United States being stronger, reliable, more to their benefit. And it's up to the United States to make sure that that's always the case.
Mm-hmm. What future do you see for the Middle East? My last question, especially that now we're seeing that Iran is a big threat, especially by funding terrorism, funding these attacks on Saudi Arabia soil and the UAE civilians. How do you see the future of the existence of this danger in the Gulf?
I don't see the danger going away anytime soon. Iran is a threat. Iran is a threat from its nuclear ambitions. Iran is a threat for support of terrorism. It's an engagement in Yemen, in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon. It's violation of human rights. And that's why it's important that as allies, the GCC countries, the United States, the international community stand united and strong against Iran's actions and work to create the context where Iran recognizes that if it wants to be a part of the international community, it can't do the nefarious things it's doing around the region and in its own country.
You are a Democratic Party member of the Congress. Will your party lose big in November?
No, I am a member of the Democratic Party. What I say is I run as a Democrat, but I represent everyone in my district, Republican, Democrats, and everyone in between. I won my first election by 1 point. I lost the next one by 2, won the third by 5, and have been winning by double digits ever since. And I think the reason is because represent my district well. I know their values. I appreciate their priorities, and I'm advocating for them in Congress. And I think that's what my colleagues are doing. And I think as long as they do that, we'll work hard. It'll be a tough election, but I'm hopeful it will turn out our way.
Thank you so much, Congressman Brad Schneider. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. It was great to see you. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Hey, Maria Malouf here. Please click to like and subscribe to Maria Malouf TV YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.